We got on the airplane already. Please take care of Grandpa. I sat alone at the airport, staring at the message from Rita. I had taken time off work to go on a long-awaited trip to Hawaii, but never in a million years did I think I'd be abandoned at the airport. My name is Allison Smith, and I'm 32 years old. I work as a nurse at Metro General Hospital. I have two younger sisters, Rita and Jane. 3 months ago, I was in the break room sipping coffee and organizing patient charts when I got a phone call from Rita. "Allison, how are you?" Rita's cheerful voice rang through the phone. "Do you have a moment to talk?" "Yeah, sure," I replied, still double-checking a medication order. "What's up?" My attention was split between her call and a complex treatment plan. "Mom and Dad are both retiring next month. Remember?" Rita said with a voice full of excitement. "Jane and I want to plan something special for them. We thought a family trip to Hawaii would be perfect. But unfortunately, Jane's still struggling financially, and I've been eating into my savings with Andy's preschool tuition and our mortgage payments, but we'll cover half of it." My pen stopped mid-note. "What exactly are you asking me for?" When Rita said the amount, I nearly choked on my coffee. It was the equivalent of my entire monthly nurse's salary. To earn that, I'd need to pull countless night shifts and weekend rotations. "I know it's a lot," Rita quickly added. "But they've worked so hard for us all these years." "Okay," I said hesitantly, pushing down the usual voice of protest inside me. Jane got married at 23, but she ended up getting divorced at 28 after having her second child. She never had the chance to build a career, and soon faced financial hardship, forcing her to move back in with our parents. And the costs of her living expenses and raising her children began to place a heavy burden on our parents' savings. The youngest, Rita, got married right after graduating from college and became a full-time housewife. As for me, I'm still single, so I have a bit more financial flexibility. And because I know how hard it is to work, I do feel a certain amount of gratitude toward our parents who worked so hard for us over the years. That's why, despite feeling conflicted, I decided to go along with Rita's proposal. A few days later, I received another message from her. "I've booked the trip. It's 3 months from now. Please send your share 2 months in advance. Oh, and make sure to take a week off for the vacation." I shook my head at how naturally she said it, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. For those working at the hospital, getting a full week off requires a lot of advance planning and careful coordination with coworkers. It's like my schedule doesn't even matter, I thought, sighing inwardly as I quietly closed the message. After that, my days quickly disappeared in a blur of ear chaos and night shifts. Sometimes I wondered what kind of luxurious trip my sisters were planning, but whenever I asked, their replies were cryptic and vague. Work drained my energy, and the retirement celebration slowly faded to the back of my mind. And then, the long-awaited day finally arrived. After a grueling 12-hour shift in the ER, I rushed to get changed, but my scrubs still had faint traces of blood on them. I was supposed to meet everyone at the airport, so I threw my hastily packed suitcase into the car and drove straight there. My eyes stung with exhaustion. When I reached the designated terminal, I anxiously scanned the departure area. But I didn't see a single familiar face. I checked my phone, no new messages, no missed calls. It was weird. I called Rita, then Jane, then Mom. No one answered. After searching around the airport for 30 minutes, I finally received a text from Rita. I stared at it in disbelief. "We got on the airplane already. Please take care of Grandpa." Just that. "What does that mean?" I muttered, and immediately dialed her number. After several rings, I finally heard her voice. "Did you get my message?" she asked, sounding almost casual. "What is this? I was supposed to come with you. Why did you leave me behind?" I was trembling, unable to contain my anger. She was silent for a moment, then replied, "We had to change the plan last minute. We couldn't get a caregiver for Grandpa." "But you told me last week that you had booked a care facility for him?" I raised my voice without meaning to. "Sorry. I tried to book it, but everything was full." There wasn't a hint of regret in her voice. Then she added, in an almost unnaturally light tone, "But you're a nurse, so you'll be fine, right?" A tight, painful feeling gripped my chest. I never expected I'd be the one stuck taking care of him like this. Then came another message from Mom. It was short, but it shook me even more deeply. "You'll be fine. Grandpa's medication and care instructions are on the kitchen table." I instinctively gripped my phone, holding my breath. I never imagined even my mother would force this onto me. Anger surged in my chest. And yet, thinking about my grandfather, I wrestled with the conflicting urge to stay calm. With no other choice, I got in the car and headed to my parents' house. When I arrived, the front door was slightly ajar. Inside, I found Grandpa sitting on the sofa, staring off into the distance. When our eyes met, he looked at me with a vague expression, but his gaze soon drifted away. "Grandpa?" I called out softly, unsure of how to approach him. His eyes widened and he repeated the same question over and over again. "Where's everyone?" I let out a long breath in my mind. His dementia had clearly progressed, and he could no longer grasp what was happening. Watching him ask the same thing again and again made my chest ache. On the table were his medications and a sheet of care instructions, but they were far too hastily thrown together to be useful at a glance. It said, "Give him his medicine after every meal," but was followed by a long list of vague precautions. As I scanned through them, I casually opened the refrigerator. It was completely empty. There was nothing tailored to Grandpa's dietary needs. Realizing that nothing had been prepared for what he should be eating, I felt another wave of anger rise inside me. How could they let this happen? I was furious at my sisters and parents for what felt like a deliberate setup. Grandpa's voice echoed again as he repeated, "Where's everyone?" I took a deep breath and answered him in a gentle voice. "They'll be back soon. Don't worry." But even those words couldn't comfort me. I found myself thinking back to when I was a nursing student. In my second year, I worked overtime shifts at a local pharmacy to save enough money for a nursing conference in Chicago. It was my first opportunity for professional networking. My registration was confirmed, the hotel was booked, and my presentation materials were ready. The night before my flight, I got a sudden call from my parents. "Allison, we need to talk," my mother said. The moment I heard her voice, my heart sank. Grandpa fell down. His caregiver canceled at the last minute. "We need you to take care of him this weekend." My heart dropped like a stone. But I've been preparing for this conference for months. My presentation on trauma care is tomorrow. I know, but this is an emergency, my mother insisted, unable to meet my eyes through the phone. You're the only one in the family with medical training. What about Jane? I asked desperately. She could at least help a little. She has a job interview, my mother replied quickly. But the attendance fee. We'll reimburse you, my father cut in. Grandpa trusts you more than anyone. You're better at managing his medication and mobility issues than we are. My dream of attending the nursing conference vanished like morning dew. While my colleagues shared insights and built professional connections, I spent the weekend monitoring my grandfather's vital signs and managing his worsening dementia. Months later, while casually browsing Instagram, I stumbled upon photos of my parents enjoying a Caribbean cruise. It was the first time I realized they had gone on vacation during the very weekend I canceled the conference to care for Grandpa. We just needed a little break, my mother admitted when I confronted her. You understand, right? I still remember the boiling anger I felt upon learning that my career advancement had to be sacrificed for their vacation. My parents and sisters had always expected me to care for Grandpa simply because I was a nurse. I loved him deeply and never resented caring for him. But I couldn't accept the way they dismissed their own responsibility with a single phrase, because you're the most qualified. It was the same with this family trip. They planned everything assuming I would look after Grandpa and went off on their own without hesitation. Caring for Grandpa should be a shared family responsibility. So why was it always just me? That thought weighed heavily in my chest. While I was having lunch with Grandpa, still holding those feelings inside, he suddenly said, "Thank you. Thank you for always helping me." He smiled weakly, and I felt a tightness in my chest as I fought back the emotion rising inside me. In that moment, I felt everything I had been carrying. And I made a decision. After clearing the lunch dishes, I immediately called Adult Protective Services and explained the situation of neglect. They promised to respond right away. With steady hands, I sent one clear message to the entire family: Grandpa has been left without proper care. I've reported the situation to Adult Protective Services. My phone lit up with calls and messages. I silenced it and focused entirely on checking Grandpa's medication. Within 40 minutes, a car arrived at the front door. 2 police officers entered to assess the situation. Soon after, a representative from Adult Protective Services arrived. As I explained the situation in detail, the representative calmly took notes and collected the necessary information. I showed the transfer records proving that I had contributed financially to the vacation. The rest of the family, who had been on the trip, were contacted by Adult Protective Services and were forced to cut their vacation short. The representative explained the suspicion of elder neglect, and they were told to return home immediately. 2 days later, after having lunch with Grandpa and watching TV in the living room, the front door flew open. My mother rushed in with a panicked expression. Behind her, Rita, Jane, and the rest of the family followed in a flurry. "Allison," my mother gasped. "What did you do?" As I said in my message, I replied calmly, standing up and meeting her eyes. "I contacted the agency. They're coming over shortly." Without waiting for a response, I walked away. An hour later, the doorbell rang. When I opened the door, the representative asked calmly, "Are you Allison Smith?" I nodded and pointed toward the living room, where my family sat watching anxiously. The representative turned to my mother and spoke in a firm voice. "We need to have a detailed conversation about this situation." My mother immediately said, "Allison was supposed to take care of him. She promised." "No, Mom," I said quietly. "I was never told about this plan, and I never agreed to it." The representative requested identification from everyone present. They were then taken into separate rooms for questioning. After several hours of detailed investigation, the agent conducted an interview with me as well to clarify key points. I explained everything as it was the reality of Grandpa's care, his daily condition, and the events that led to this point. I had doubts and inner conflict, but more than anything, I was angry at my parents and sisters. As a result of the investigation, my parents were formally charged under the Elder Abuse Prevention Act for grossly neglecting their duty of care. Once the charges were accepted, further legal procedures and detailed investigations were carried out by the relevant authorities, and a trial was officially scheduled. From the day it was announced that there would be a trial, my smartphone became a quiet battleground. The screen lit up with a new notification. It was a direct message from Rita on Instagram. "Congratulations, Allison. Thanks to your justice, Mom and Dad now have to use half their retirement savings for legal fees. You're such a wonderful daughter. Instead of protecting your family, you've destroyed it." The next day, when I checked my voicemail, I heard my mother's voice. "Allison, I don't understand why you did this. We just needed a little rest. For 30 years we raised the three of you, and we were finally trying to have some time for ourselves. You treated us like criminals. Your actions hurt the entire family. Do you even know what you're doing?" Jane's text message brought a different kind of accusation. "The kids are confused. They don't understand why the police came. Now they have to meet a social worker. What you've done has scarred them for life. If you really cared about them, you wouldn't have done something so extreme." The short message from my father hurt the most. "I've worked all my life for this family. So has your mother. Why are you punishing us like this?" That night, another message came from Rita, more aggressive than before. "I told all our friends what you did. That you betrayed your own family. Everyone says they can't believe it. Our family photo ended up in the local paper. How am I supposed to send my kids to school now? You acted without thinking and did something you can never take back." After reading all those messages, I set my phone down and took a deep breath. Then, in a calm voice, I reminded myself, "I'm not wrong. They used my money and went on a trip without my consent. They lied to me and left me behind. They always assumed I would sacrifice myself for them. I've had enough. I needed to stand up for myself too. This is the first step toward reclaiming my life. I have no regrets." The phone rang again. But I no longer intended to listen to anything they had to say. I blocked every contact, deleted all my social media accounts, and severed ties with my family completely. On the day of the trial, I sat in the gallery, quietly watching everything unfold before me, as if it weren't real. My parents and the rest of the family were present in the courtroom, and I was called to the stand as a witness. Reflecting on all the pain, anger, and helplessness I had carried for so long, I answered each question as calmly and truthfully as I could. My parents and sisters cried and apologized in court, but it was too late. And when the judge delivered the verdict, I felt a sharp pain tighten in my chest. My family was found guilty of elder neglect and held accountable for their actions. As a result, my parents were ordered to pay a large fine and had their roles in the household legally restricted. This outcome was not something that brought me joy. If anything, the fact that it had to go this far to change anything weighed heavily on me. The collapse of our family structure left me with a deep sense of loss as I slowly walked out of the courtroom. Later, the family court officially appointed me as Grandpa's legal guardian. Grandpa's dementia had progressed, and it has become my responsibility to manage every aspect of his daily life. So I needed to move him somewhere he could live as comfortably as possible. Once the arrangements were in place, I sent him off to his new care facility, thinking I would never forget that day. Led by my hand, Grandpa entered the facility with vacant eyes. I watched his back as he walked in, without looking back even once. At the facility, I committed to monthly visits and regular checks to ensure his care remained comfortable. But deep down, the anger I felt over my family's betrayal never faded. My life had changed drastically because of what happened, and I felt certain I would never be able to trust my family again. After that, I made a decision to focus entirely on my own life. I moved to a new place and started over. I threw myself into work, trying to fill the emptiness inside. My focus and dedication in the emergency department reached a new level, and my supervisors began to take notice. 6 months later, I was offered a promotion to clinical educator. The role involved training and mentoring new nurses. "Allison, your calmness and judgment are incredibly valuable," said the head of nursing. "The whole team has a lot to learn from you." Outside of work, I spent time reclaiming myself. I joined the meditation class I had dreamed of for years, started watercolor painting, and most importantly, learned to treasure my own time. I never canceled my plans for someone else again, and I found the strength to say no. I visited Grandpa every month and spent time with him in his quiet room. His dementia had advanced, but whenever he saw me, he gave a gentle smile and always said, "Hello, beautiful young lady." He didn't always remember my name, but I could see peace in his eyes. According to the staff at the facility, he was calm and doing well thanks to the structured routine and professional care. And just like that, a year passed like a dream. One stormy afternoon, Eileen appeared at the entrance to the nurses' station. "There's someone at reception asking for you," she said hesitantly. "It's your mother." I felt my heart start to race and forced myself to stay composed. "Okay." At the front desk, I saw my mother utterly changed. She looked like a different person. Her once proud posture had collapsed, her hair was fully gray, and her eyes were hollow with defeat. "Allison," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Thank you for seeing me." "What do you want?" I asked, my voice steady despite the unease in my chest. "I came to apologize," she whispered, "and to ask for your help." "What kind of help?" "We're financially ruined," she admitted, tears rising in her tired eyes. "We're in debt. The retirement funds and the pensions are all gone." "And?" I prompted, already sensing where this was going. "We need money," she finally admitted. Please, help us." I looked out the hospital window at the ambulance below. Once, I would have drained my savings without a second thought to support them. "Mom," I said carefully. "Last year I drew a clear boundary. You used my compassion and treated my dedication like it was something you were entitled to. My feelings, my career, my very existence meant nothing more than what I could give you. But you're still our daughter." My mother's voice cracked with desperation. "Isn't family supposed to support each other in times of need?" "Real families support and respect each other," I replied quietly. "You've spent years treating me as nothing more than a convenient resource. That's not love. That's exploitation." She broke down in tears, her entire body shaking with sobs. "What am I supposed to do now?" "Figure it out yourselves," I said firmly. "Like the capable adults you claim to be." She stared at me, her eyes clouded with raw despair. "You've become so cold." "I've grown up, Mom," I said, smiling sincerely. "I finally learned that my worth isn't measured by how much I sacrifice." I spoke softly. A swirl of emotions passed across her face. First surprise, then anger, and finally a look that resembled sorrow. She stared at me silently for a long moment. "You've changed," she said softly. But there was no accusation in her voice, only resignation. "I haven't changed," I said. "I've simply woken up." Without another word, she turned toward the elevator. After she left, I felt an unexpected sense of peace. In the months that followed, my parents' and sisters' lives changed drastically. My parents were burdened with debt, had no retirement savings left, and couldn't survive on their pensions alone. They were forced to live a modest lifestyle. "Allison, I went to the home improvement store yesterday and saw your father working there. He looked completely exhausted." My colleague Aileen was the one who told me that my father had been working at the home improvement store. The man who was once so proud was now arranging shelves with a weary expression. I also happened to see Jane working as a cashier at a local supermarket. Our eyes met, but she quickly looked away and returned to helping another customer. Since I continued volunteering in the local community, I occasionally heard about their situation from neighbors. "Allison, about your parents and Jane lately, we've been hearing yelling from their house almost every night. Just last week I heard Jane shouting, 'It's your fault I'm stuck in this job.' And your uncle yelled back, 'We're struggling too.' Who's the one who's been relying on their parents forever?" Sometimes you can even hear things breaking. Hearing that filled me with mixed emotions. Part of me felt sympathy knowing they were suffering, but remembering the years of manipulation and exploitation, I also felt the need to protect myself. They were facing the consequences of their own choices. As for Rita, I learned about her situation through a mutual friend. Eva, who had attended a wedding, messaged me saying, "I heard Rita and Joe separated." Apparently Joe, who's a lawyer, was furious when news of Rita's parents being prosecuted spread through the firm, and he felt it damaged his career. He blamed her and left with the kids. I heard Rita moved into a small apartment alone. Their downfall, I believe, is the result of their own actions. I finally learned to walk my life at my own pace. Now I volunteer for a youth mentoring program, and I'm forming new connections with people who genuinely appreciate support. From now on, I'm living for myself,